This way. Welcome back, troops. Now this video is inspired by a video done recently by Mad Dog Survival, and his video was called Tips for Beginners Tag, and you might like to check that out because it's not just tips for beginners. He's also starting a 3,000 subs giveaway, so it might be well worth you checking that video out. Now, my channel is about being comfortable in the outdoors, and it is a work in progress, which I started as a kiddie because I spent a lot of my time around this area as a kiddie. So this is basically the 5 tips that I'm going to give you to, assuming that you're a beginner and your interests are along the lines of bushcraft, wild camping or hiking. Okay, so tip number 1. Start small, start local, and start cheap. And that's fairly self-explanatory. But most of us have a back garden or a park or some open area locally where we can practice putting a tent up, or we can put a rucksack on our back and go for a few hours walk, perhaps take a brew with us, little stove, make a brew halfway through, and then if it doesn't go according to plan, no big drama. You can go home, re-study where it went wrong, start again, perhaps even the same day. Because the last thing you want to do is create disappointment and think that it's harder than it really is. It's like a lot of things. You don't learn to drive in a couple of hours, not properly anyway. And it's a similar sort of situation. Navigation comes a bit later on, but as you're wandering around the park or the local area and you start noticing what the angle of the sun is, where the wind's coming from, if you can get a map, even better. We're not talking learning navigation at this stage, we're just talking identifying how far you're walking in how long a period. Small rucksack on your back, how long does it take? How does different terrain matter? Do your boots really fit? Basic things. All be done locally. So that's tip 1. Okay, tip number 2 then. And this may sound dramatic, but I don't mean it in a dramatic way. And that is, plan for disaster and failure. And what I mean by that is life rarely pans out exactly as you expect it to. And when you get a bit more ambitious, you start stopping out overnight or even longer, and maybe it's a bit further away from home, there is the potential for things going wrong. There's the potential for things going dramatically wrong. So there are a few extra bits of kit that hopefully ordinarily you wouldn't use, but you're going to carry with you. I'm just out walking the dog, but I always carry this first aid kit with me. It's got a lot of potential, this little tiny first aid kit. It's got a lot in it for its size. I won't open it. I've opened it in a previous dog walking EDC video. So if I have a small accident, or if I need to light a fire, or a few other things as well, that first aid kit will sort that out. Now I might have an accident and I might need to call for help. Well, one thing obviously is the phone. But I might smash the phone in my accident, in which case it's starting to snow. I have a small whistle, and I also carry with me, because it's not far off getting dark, a light. It's got two light settings and a strobe setting. I could, at a push, make a shelter. Again, I'm not planning on being out overnight, but I'm not that close to home. And I could end up having to spend the night out. So, just plan for what you don't want to happen. For example, especially in bushcraft, mucking about with axes and things, it is a distinct possibility that you chop a finger off. The other thing with tip 2 is don't be afraid to cut your plans short. In fact, factor in cutting your plans short, how you would cut them short. The last thing on this topic is, if you're stopping out overnight away from home in an area like this, woodland, where when the weather's fine there are people within whistling distance, shouting distance, but when the weather turns like this, they all pretty smartish disappear. And that is to tell somebody where you're going, what your route is, what your expectations are, what you might plan to do if things don't go according to plan, and how long they should give you before they start getting worried and start calling out the mountain rescue or the emergency services. Make sure that's a reliable person, and make sure that you are reliable as well. So at the earliest opportunity, if your plans change, you let them know, and you also let them know as soon as the expedition is over, so they can stand down. So that was point 2. Right, so that brings me to my third tip. And my third tip is, when you're out in unfamiliar surroundings, doing unfamiliar things, try and focus on what it is you are supposed to be doing, and keep that in your mind, bearing in mind what you will be doing in the near future as well. Because when you're outdoors, you'll find things take longer You have to plan ahead a little bit more. You have to keep your wits about you. You have to not be talking to your mobile phone, making a video and walking over a precipice at the same time. So what we could call this tip is develop situational awareness. Have I turned round 180 degrees? Do I know where I'm going, really? I'm going down this bank, hopefully, without coming a cropper. Whoa! There we go. Right, so just remember, neither the sun nor the tide will wait while you fiddle about. Right, if I'd have had a bit more of vantage point, I would have seen this hailstorm coming and I could have made a decision. Do I carry on or do I take shelter? So tip 3 then, situational awareness. Right, with tip 4 then, we're getting on to some fairly heavy stuff. Learn your limits and keep learning your limits. Your limits will change over time. And learn the limits of any partner that you are out in the outdoors with. In a real life situation, and I have been in a few real life situations, if you can hold it together mentally, physically, you're probably a lot stronger than you think if you can hold it together mentally. So being comfortable in the outdoors is a skill which requires not just physical development, not just knowledge of the resources around you, but also developing your mentality. Sadly, we only really learn when things tend to get out of control a little and we have experiences we never planned for. Because a planned experience cannot really be called a... I've just spotted some quite nice birch polypore fungus. I'm not going to take it at this time. They're on that tree. We'll get it in view. That tree there, just there, and then there's another one higher up there. Birch polypore, good first aid fungus. Anyway, so what you don't learn. You don't learn by me talking to you. You get advice, and whether it sinks in or not, things don't really sink in unless you've experienced them. So I am a great believer in letting people make their own mistakes, but giving them enough information that hopefully those mistakes will be fairly small ones and things will not get out of control. Now, I am 60 now, and my limits are changing, obviously. But I have to, well, I don't have to. I used to compete with 25-year-olds at work. But to remain happy, I don't do that anymore. As you get older, your limits will change. I fell out of a tree not so long ago, and I hit the ground very heavily, and I realised then I just don't bounce as well as I used to. Anyway, on any particular day your limits will change as well. Tip 5. It's not really a tip, it's a frame of mind. Now, being outdoors is a balance. It's a balance between freedom and safety. And when you're outdoors, you're using knives, axes, fires. You're busting wood by various different methods. You're traversing uneven, dangerous terrain, wild animals, all that sort of stuff. So it's a balance between freedom and safety. And you've got to decide where on that balance you are happy to be. You've probably got building a snowman in the back garden at one end of the scale, and solo free climbing on El Capitan or something in Yosemite at the other end of the scale. And I'm not one for preventing people taking risks, so long as they understand those risks and they don't drag other people into those risks or the consequences of those risks. But just that's the sun coming out a wee bit in between snow and hail showers. Jess? I've been here stood talking to this for a few minutes, so she's scouting around, and there's a couple of folk up in that direction. So that's it for now then. It's not my intention to put anybody off. You know, risk is what you decide it to be. I know, as I've mentioned, in different countries have different risks, and I understand firsthand some of those risks. I won't go into detail, it starts getting political, doesn't it? But I might expand on some of the things I've done in future videos, but we've all got to work within the rules of this platform which we are on. If you don't like it, go somewhere else, but I'm here, and so we've got to keep things toned down a little bit. So that's it then. Enjoy yourself outdoors, be careful outdoors, just follow those tips, look at other people's tips, look at my tips, look at other people's tips, try and be sensible and use some common sense. Try to start small and build. Some of the situations I've been in, I would just not have survived had I not had previous experience. So we'll leave it there then. If you live in the Northern Hemisphere, don't forget it's winter. The weather, you can get a forecast, but a forecast is just a forecast. It's not necessarily what's going to happen. So especially this time of year, you can get caught out. Although I must admit the forecasts are getting better and better. In fact, so good now. You know, you don't get enough surprises really. Right, so just don't take anything anybody says as gospel. Look through their channels, other people's channels, compare what people say, and then go and do your own thing, hopefully safely and sensibly.